He thought $1,100 a month was enough to start over in the Philippines, and for the first couple months, it actually worked. Cheap rent, cheap food, a slower life. The kind of life he thought he'd been missing for the last 40 years. But 18 months later, his savings were almost gone. He couldn't afford a flight home, and the life he thought he had built was never real to begin with. This is what happened to David, and how a simple retirement plan slowly turned into something he couldn't escape. David was 66 years old when he finally stopped working, not because he wanted to, but because his body and his mind had both reached a point where they just couldn't do it anymore. He had spent over 4 decades working maintenance at a manufacturing plant in Arizona. Same building, same machines, same routine, year after year. At first it felt stable, predictable, but somewhere in his late 50s, that stability started to feel like a trap. The job didn't change, but he did. The hours felt longer, the work felt heavier, and every day started to feel like something he was just trying to get through. By the time he hit 65, he wasn't thinking about retirement as a reward. He was thinking about it as an escape. The problem was, the numbers didn't work. His Social Security came out to about $1,100 a month. His rent alone in Arizona was nearly $900. That left him with barely enough for food, utilities, gas, and definitely not enough for anything unexpected. He had around $32,000 saved, 40 years of work, and that was everything. At the rate he was going, he could maybe survive, but he couldn't live. And the thought that really stuck with him was this: if this is the rest of my life, what's the point? That's when YouTube entered the picture. Late nights, scrolling, watching, and slowly, the algorithm started feeding him something new. Videos about retiring abroad, about the Philippines, about living comfortably on less than half of what he was spending now. For the first few weeks, he felt like he had figured something out that most people hadn't. Every small expense reinforced it. A full meal for a couple dollars. A ride across the city for less than a coin. Rent that didn't feel like a burden hanging over him. He started doing the math in his head constantly. If he spent $25 today, that was still less than one meal back home. If he kept his daily spending under $30, he could stay under $900 for the month easily. And for a while, he did. He even started thinking ahead. If I can keep this pace, my savings might actually last 10 years, maybe more. That thought alone was something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not just survival, but time. At first, he didn't believe it, but the more videos he watched, the more it started to feel real. People breaking down budgets, rent for $200 to $300, meals for a few dollars, transportation almost nothing, and most importantly, they all said the same thing. If you have around $1,000 a month, you can live here. David did the math. Over and over again, if his rent dropped from $900 to even $250, that alone changed everything. Suddenly, his $1,100 didn't look like survival anymore. It looked like freedom. He spent 3 months researching Facebook groups, forums, YouTube comments, and the pattern was always the same. If you live simple, you'll be fine. So he made a decision, not carefully, not cautiously, but out of a mix of desperation and hope. He sold most of what he owned, packed one suitcase, and booked a one-way ticket. When he landed, everything felt different. The heat, the noise, the movement of the city. It was overwhelming, but also strangely exciting. His first apartment cost him about 12,000 pesos a month, just over $200. Small, basic, no hot water. But it didn't matter, because the math was working. The first month, he tracked everything. Every meal, every ride, every expense. At the end of the month, he had spent around $750 total, including rent. For the first time in years, he felt ahead instead of behind. He could buy groceries without calculating everything in his head. He could sit down for a meal without thinking about what bill he might be forgetting. It wasn't luxury, but compared to the pressure he left behind, it felt like relief. And relief can be dangerous when you've been without it for too long, because once life starts feeling easier, you stop asking whether it's actually sustainable. But something else started creeping in, something the videos never talked about. The days felt long, really long. He didn't know anyone, he didn't speak the local language, and even though people were friendly, everything felt surface level. His routine became simple: wake up early, eat alone, walk around, sit in malls for air conditioning, go back home, repeat. At first, the routine felt peaceful. Quiet mornings, no rush, no deadlines. But after a few weeks, the quiet started to feel different. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was empty. There were entire days where the only words he spoke out loud were ordering food or saying thank you. He started noticing small things, the way people sat together in groups, families eating, friends laughing, and he was always just passing through, even when people were friendly. It didn't go deeper than that. No real conversations, no shared history, no one who actually knew him. And the truth was that this part of the plan was never something he had really thought through, because all the videos focused on money, but none of them really talked about what it felt like to build a life from nothing. And after a while, the excitement wore off. The cheap life worked, but it felt empty. That's when he met her. It started small, just a familiar face, someone who recognized him, someone who remembered his order, someone who talked to him like he wasn't invisible. Her name was Lisa. She worked long hours, 6 days a week, helping support her family. At first, it was just conversation, short, simple, but real. And for David, that mattered more than he realized, because after months of being alone, even a few minutes of connection felt like something bigger. They started spending time together. The first few times they met outside of her work, it felt simple, almost casual, just walking, talking, eating somewhere small and local. But there was something different about it. She listened, not just politely, but with attention, when he talked about his old job, about how repetitive it felt, about how long those years seemed. She didn't rush the conversation. She didn't change the subject. She asked questions, follow-up questions, and that was something he hadn't experienced in a long time. It made him feel seen. And slowly, that became something he started looking forward to, not just the time together, but the feeling of having somewhere to go and someone to talk to. And slowly, his life started to feel different, not just cheaper, but fuller. The first time he helped her, it didn't feel like a big deal. Her daughter needed medicine. It was about $100. For him, that was nothing compared to what he used to spend. And the gratitude, the appreciation, the feeling of being needed, it hit him in a way he hadn't felt in years. At first, it didn't feel like a pattern. It felt like separate moments. A little money for medicine, help with groceries, covering something small that came up, nothing that looked reckless on its own. That was the part that made it easy to continue, because one by one every expense felt reasonable, and every time he told himself the same thing. This is temporary. This is just a rough week. Next month will be lighter, but next month was rarely lighter. It was just different. A new reason, a new expense, a new moment where saying no felt harder than saying yes. The second time he helped, it didn't even feel like a decision. It felt like, of course I would help, because now this wasn't just a random person. This was someone he cared about, and that changed everything. The third time, he noticed the number. Another $100. Another $150. But he didn't stop, because every time he helped, the response was the same: gratitude, appreciation, connection, and over time, those moments started to matter more than the money itself. He stopped thinking in terms of totals and started thinking in terms of moments. This is helping her. This matters. This is worth it. And that's when the shift really happened, because once you stop tracking the numbers clearly, it becomes very easy for them to grow. Each time it felt justified, but slowly his monthly spending started to change. $750 became $900, $900 became $1,100, then $1,300. At first, he didn't notice it, or maybe he did, but chose not to, because emotionally, his life had improved. He wasn't alone anymore. He had someone who cared, someone who needed him. But financially, things were starting to slip. His savings, which once felt like a safety net, were slowly shrinking. And then he started noticing patterns, the timing of expenses, the frequency of emergencies, the way every problem seemed to appear right when he had money. The moment he brought it up, he already knew. It was a risk, not financially, but emotionally. Because if he was right, then everything he had built started to look different. And if he was wrong, then he had just questioned someone who had become important to him. So when the reaction came back, hurt, confused, emotional, he backed off immediately, not because the concern disappeared, but because the cost of being wrong felt too high. And after that, he stopped bringing it up. Not because he didn't see it anymore, but because it was easier to believe everything was fine. By then, his savings had stopped feeling like security. They felt like something he was slowly watching disappear. What made it harder was that emotionally, his life had improved. He wasn't alone anymore. He had someone to talk to, someone who made his days feel different. So the spending didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like part of having a real life. And that made it harder to stop, because pulling back didn't just mean saving money. It meant risking the one thing that made everything feel worth it. By month 18, his savings had dropped below $5,000. That's when reality finally caught up. He told her he needed to slow down, be more careful, and almost immediately, everything changed. The calls slowed down. The visits stopped, the connection disappeared, and just like that, he was alone again. Only this time, he didn't have the money to start over. Now, he lives in a smaller place, cheaper than before, back to basics. But it's different now, because he understands something he didn't before. The math only works if you remove everything that makes life feel worth living. And the moment you try to add that back, connection, relationships, purpose, the cost changes, and for him, that cost was everything he had. Not every story ends this way. Not every relationship is like this, but the risk is real, because the biggest expense isn't always rent, or food, or transportation. Sometimes, it's the one thing you can't calculate, the need to feel like you matter to someone. And if you don't factor that in, the math will always be wrong. Back in the U.S., $1,100 felt impossible. In the Philippines, it felt possible right up until he tried to build a real life on top of it. That was the part no budget ever showed him. Surviving is one number, living is another, and confusing the two cost him almost everything.